Imagine you're in a situation where you should be happy, but instead a thought comes across your mind and it is all you can think about. See, it's crazy how our mind works, that what we think about is actually a better predictor of happiness than what we actually did. Our mood isn't defined by what we did, it's what we thought about. And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot as the new year has come upon us. Setting my goals, making my resolutions, all the things. So in today's video, I want to talk to you guys about how powerful our thoughts can actually be. And as an introvert who is often overthinking, this is something that's been super helpful for me. So if you're an introvert, if you're someone who spends a lot of time thinking about their thoughts and observing their thoughts and kind of feeling like their life is being driven by your thoughts, make sure you stick around to the end of this video. Now, before we get into it, I just want to welcome those of you who are new here. My name is Bridget. On this channel, I talk a lot about introverted things. I talk about social anxiety, general anxiety, talk about the books I'm reading. So if any of that interests you, make sure you check out some of my other videos as well. So with that being said, let's get into the video. Right before the new year started, I had this long conversation with my husband where we were both kind of just like chilling on these couches and writing down our goals for the year. Two of my goals, one of them was to be more curious. The other goal was to spend less time worrying about things and more time doing things. As Monday morning came around, I actually discovered this book that I'm probably going to be talking about a lot in this video. It's called Chatter, The Voice in Our Head, Why It Matters, How We Can Harness It. One of the first things he started to talk about in the book was something that I found so fascinating, and I'm about to get super nerdy on you guys, so if you want you can skip this part, but if you're interested in it too, stick around. What we focus on becomes powerful, and what we choose to focus on, our experiences, our thoughts, can actually change our brain. Every time you have an experience, the relevant neurons will start firing. So the more often you have those experiences, the more often those neurons will get fired. These neural connections get stronger and more synapses start firing. And the more we have these experiences, the more we have these thoughts, the stronger that they get. Every time those neurons are activated, they're elevated in an order of importance. It's basically why we'll never forget the alphabet. We've done it so many times, we'll never forget how to count. And so the more often we do this, the more often we think about this, it becomes like a habit. Our brain will change no matter what. And so it's important to think about what way we want to change it in, what way we would like to build it in. If you let your mind settle on that self-critical talk, those negative feelings, negative experiences, the guilt, the regret, the fear, the stress, all of that is going to have an impact on our brain, an impact on what we say, what we do, what we feel. So in the book, Ethan Kross talks about the way our thoughts happen in our mind, that self-talk that we have. He calls it chatter. And honestly, some of the statistics he was talking about, how much chatter is actually happening in our brain on a daily basis, was insane. On one hand, it's mind-boggling, but on the other hand, I'm like, I have a million thoughts on a daily basis, so honestly, that checks out. So he calls this inner voice the chatter. And the scary thing about chatter, he says, is the way that it feeds our stress. It can change the way our DNA influences our health. So if you think about, as all humans, like what we're made of, it's genes plus our environment equals who we are. Not every single gene is going to be on. So your environment and a whole bunch of other things will shape which genes get expressed and which genes don't. Which genes are turned on, which genes are not. It's gene expression. Some genes will never be pressed. Some rarely, and some frequently. Because chatter can have such a negative effect if it is chronic and it induces stress, it can shape the ways in which our genes are expressed. Mental pain, those thoughts, the ruminating ones, is actually very similar to physical pain. What happens in the brain during both of these processes is very similar. So if we have chronic stress, if we have those chronic thoughts that are literally just tearing us down, our fight or flight is always activated. And that will in turn affect how our genes are expressed, it will affect our DNA. And I know all of this sounds scary. When I was reading it, I was like, okay, when are you gonna get to the good part? When are you gonna get to the part where I can fix this? Because it feels like I'm doomed at this point. But one of my resolutions was getting more curious. I want to be more curious. I want to know more things. And the way I learn is really by understanding why things happen or how things happen even. It makes me really understand the concept as a whole. So if I can understand the background, what's actually happening in my body, I feel more equipped to actually, want to do something about it. And he does talk about a lot of different things that we can do. I'll be honest, I haven't finished the book, but I'm just going to share with you some of the things that I found to be really helpful. So the first overarching concept he talks about is zooming out. And this made a lot of sense to me because if I think about, the times where these stressors were more chronic in my life and I was really being pulled by all these different thoughts that I was having on a daily basis and feeling like I was so stuck, feeling like I was constantly procrastinating. If I take a look back on that scenario and really how I pulled myself out, it was kind of just like taking a bird's eye view of my situation. So he talks about this concept called zooming out. And he had run this experiment with a group that he called the distancers and a group that he called the immersers. The immersers were the people who took that first person perspective on the situation. So if they were in an argument, let's say, because I don't really remember the experiment as a whole, they were in an argument. And then the other group was also in a similar argument, but they took the third person perspective. They kind of zoomed out and looked at the situation as a whole, rather than seeing it in only their own eyes. And by doing so, the distancers, who were able to zoom out of the situation, were not only able to feel better about the argument and feel better about the resolution, but they were also able to see it from their partner's perspective. And this concept of, not being able to see ourselves the way we see other people goes back to stories dated centuries ago, right? It's talked about in the Bible with Solomon. It's talked about, in just our history in general. Abraham Lincoln, in his biography, he talks about this concept. So we see the same theme happening over and over and over again, and yet we still do it. We still don't take that perspective. We still don't zoom out. We're so close, we can't see other things happening. Not only in like the grand scheme of life, not being able to see each other's POV in politics, but even in just our everyday experiences. We had a bad day at work. We messed up the presentation. We said something wrong to a friend. We're in a stupid argument with our spouse. And we're thinking about it, and it's ruining, at least for me. Like sometimes I find when I have a thought, it will ruin the entire day for me. Might even ruin the entire week for me if I'm still thinking about it. Because I feel the need to address, I feel this need to be right almost. And so when taking that perspective of seeing the other person's side, or just zooming out of your life in general, and your problems, can make a world of a difference. And you'll probably be like, well, that's easy for you to say. And you know what? You're right. But something I think might be helpful when you actually go to do this is say you're your best friend, and your best friend came to you for advice. Would you tell that person to continually think about that stupid thought? Would you tell them to be self-critical? Would you tell them to live in fear or doubt or shame or guilt? Probably not. You would probably say something like something reassuring and something that's actually like advice to, go out and fix the problem. Right? It might not be the best advice, but it's better than thinking about those things that they will probably think about. And so be your best friend. Give yourself that advice. Take the outsider's perspective. That is something I really want to bring into the new year as, when you look back and you see the goals that you set for yourself in the previous year and you realize that, wow, all of those goals, or not all of them I achieved, and I'm not really doing this, and I'm actually doing this instead, and it can get really depressing. So I think this is a really great time at the beginning of the year to take that perspective, zoom out, and really look at, the good things that you've accomplished, the things that maybe you never saw yourself accomplishing, setting yourself new goals. I'm just saying it's a great piece of advice to bring the new year in with. I do want to update you guys as I finish this book because I really think that there are so many good pieces of information. And I will say the reason I found this book, I'm going to link the book, but I'm also going to link the article I read where I found the book. I think it was like top 5 books all introverts should read. And so I picked up this book, has not mentioned introvert in it once, but I feel so many things that like correspond in an introvert's life. And that's why I feel like it's been really helpful for me to understand. It's giving me that curiosity that I want to fulfill, that knowledge, the learning, blah, blah, blah. but it's also giving me like actionable advice to, deal with some of the problems that a lot of us introverts have. That overthinking is one of them. And so I will link the article, I will link the book as well if you guys are interested. But that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you found it helpful and useful as always, and I will see you next time. Bye.